Welcome back to the Lift Free and Diet Hard podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Coates. Join me along with industry leaders and friends on a quest to get more people through the gym door and eating and living healthier. Join me where evidence meets empathy while rejecting fitness industry fads and extremism. Let's begin. Cody McBroom, it's been a while. You were a guest quite a ways back when I used to speak more towards other trainers, but I'm trying to gear the audience more towards the enthusiast. I know there's a lot of coaches listening and loving it, but it's great to have you back. You are the CEO of Tailored Coaching Method and the host of the Choose Hard podcast. And you and I will actually both be presenting at our friend Luca, host of ours, Super Coach. And I know it's March 20th or 21st, whichever the Saturday is. I haven't memorized the exact date, but if you guys are actually interested in coming down, this one's definitely more for coaches. But if you guys are interested, you're in the area, want to come in, just hit Luca up. People can attend. So it's great to have you back.
Likewise, man. Thank you for having me. And I'm excited for you to get out to this side of the country. I guess you're not technically in the country, but over here and be able to speak on the same stage together, hang out, hopefully get some time together outside of the actual pre-zo as well.
And I'll be back for Luca's Vigor Summit as well. I'll attend. Yeah. I spoke in 2024, which is great. And I just can't wait to be there, boots on the ground. So I'll get some time there. I love it over in that area.
Yeah, likewise, man. I'm excited to have you.
Cool. Okay. So you've been posting about some stuff. I pulled out some really good ideas. I think it's worth getting into the whole AI conversation. I think it's like AI and peptides. Like it just drives downloads and people will click on it. So will AI save people in the context of their long-term metabolic health, fitness, wellness?
Oh man, this is such a loaded topic. I think that AI is such it's a wonderful thing. Honestly, there's been so many positives to it. I was very resistant to it at first. I'm not going to lie, especially when it comes to content creation. There's just something about AI that feels inauthentic for the person who's been creating content and coaching and programming and stuff for years and years and years. And it's probably just that stubbornness to evolve with the times and technology. But there's obviously a lot of things that it's doing for even the medical advances and for helping people. So I think in many ways, the healthcare system is probably at an advantage for having it. I think what it's doing for coaching, should be doing for coaching, I should say, is organizing thoughts and helping you deliver data or extract data. We've used it a lot in our coaching to skim through, just years and years of data and progress and client information to figure out where their pain points are, where they're struggling most, what are the common themes of our niche demographic, things like that. Is it going to create a plan for you? It probably can, but you can also ask AI if it can outperform a coach, and it will literally tell you no, because there's too much emotional attachment, especially with diet, but there's too much emotional attachment involved to training and nutrition for AI to just come in and sweep us out of the way. I do, however, just think it's a very good tool to organize our thoughts, to extract data, to find more data, to find more research to back up what you're doing, and to help you get out your information faster in a more intellectual way, rather than relying on it to provide the information itself.
All right. So let's flip it around to how it affects the actual end user now, because we definitely know that, coaches will integrate it to varying degrees. But is it the sort of thing that, do you think that people who are using AI will actually get great information from it, reliable information from it? But here's the most important thing. Will they act on it? Or is this just another way to do what they've always done, which is search the internet? Hey, listen to the podcast. Sure. I know there's always value in that. Read the articles, scroll. And I think the more insidious one is scroll through social media and feel productive in consuming. But how does AI actually change that person and get them to act?
I don't think it does, to be honest with you. I think there's a huge gap there. I think that it's very, you and I both have been training people and coaching for a long time. And we've both provided so much free content that if it was as simple as looking at information and then just translating that information into your life and taking action to lose weight or get strong or anything like that, we would be seeing a lot more people having crazy transformations just from our information that we've put out, right? After all these years, I can actually say that I've had two people, maybe there's more, but I've only had two people that actually have reached out. One actually lived in my neighborhood and they stopped me at a 4th of July parade for the kids in my neighborhood. And they had lost 60 pounds and their wife, I think, lost like 70. And they read my free nutrition ebook and they scoured my website for blogs and they just started putting things into play. Now, the caveat here, they have each other for accountability. So they made a commitment to each other. There's something about that human interaction, that human accountability piece that plays a massive role, and AI just will not be able to replace that. But they had all the information from my website. And there was one other guy that did the same thing. He sent me a before and after and it looked pretty nuts. And he did the same thing. It's rare to find a self-motivated individual that is going to do that. Now, you and I, being meatheads for most of our life, can probably say that there was times where we went on back in the day. I mean, I can think of multiple Christian Thibodeau articles that I went and scoured and pulled the program from and ran for 4 weeks straight in the gym. But I was obsessed with the gym. I still am. Like it's a different ballgame. So I think AI can provide a lot of information, and I think it's useful for that. However, information is not the same as wisdom. It's not a program. It's not practical application, if that makes sense. And I think that what people will do, if anything, is either A, use AI as a search engine, which we're seeing very commonly right now, answer engine optimization. They're looking for the answers and use the answers, point them to a person that they can get for help, or they have all this information, but they fail to act on it because information on a piece of paper is just that. It's not something that is going to be implemented in your lifestyle if you don't know how to apply it and if you don't have accountability to actually do so.
A quick break from this episode to shout out RP Strength and the RP Hypertrophy app. I have a big confession. I've never used a coach before. I've always auto-regulated my training for decades. But I've known Dr. Mike Isertel and Nick Shaw, the founders of RP, for years. I'll get behind anything they create, including years of reading their books, consuming their media, attending their seminars, and having them as guests on the show. And I've been using the RP Hypertrophy app now for several months. And several things have happened. It forced me to make smaller and more gradual but better increases in weight volume across time, like putting 5-pound plates on each side of a leg press. Like, who does that? Never before. Only 45s. It cut out the junk volume. It made my workouts faster and more efficient. I show up with a plan. I didn't have to think about what to do. I feel more accountable having a lot of my progress. And I don't skip things because I don't feel like it. If hiring a one-on-one coach isn't for you, using the RP Hypertrophy app is the next best thing to manage your gains and to take the guesswork out of your program. There's a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you can try it risk-free, and if you don't like it, they'll give you your money back. And I've also got you a $50 US dollar discount, so go to rpstrength.com/coats and use the code COATSRP, or go to the link below in the show notes. That's rpstrength.com/coats and use the code COATSRP. I can see the power users, and you alluded to this. They're the people who will consume and act on things. They'll probably be juiced up by AI. AI will probably efficiently gather, curate, provide them information, and it's probably going to have the ability to synthesize information that is useful to that person if that person can put enough into it. Now, I suppose we're talking about AI in a very nebulous sort of way, and I like to think about it this way. Yeah, we got the ChatGPTs and Claudes and Geminis and the biggest ones. But we're also going to see the integration of these tools into other programs that are going to be actually much more finely tuned for the end user. So we're going to see this show up in a lot of apps. So you're going to obviously get coaches who will invest in app development. They'll have AI technology in there, but you're going to have big companies. We're already seeing it in the online coaching platform companies. We're seeing it in macro tracking, app companies. Macros First, my sponsor, they have, some AI integration. And I definitely want to get into this and your thoughts on how well AI can actually help with tracking. But I suspect AI will just enhance a lot of the tools that are already there. And this is where I suspect it might make the biggest difference. Probably not the general person who is using it like a search engine, who was using search engines to search for stuff before and consuming. But I suspect it might fine-tune some of the other tools. Now, here's a thought. Do you think that it can be used to help with accountability, with support for people? What would it have to look like? What would it have to look like?
The reality is that even with AI giving that, I would assume it would be as simple as reminders and notifications and things like that. We can do that. Yes, we have to manually set them up. It'll be easier to set them up, but most of AI is just making things easier to set up, easier to manually do. Even the thing that we've noticed the most with clients is that so much of this boils down to the mindset. It boils down to self-discipline and self-control and being able to act on those things in the moment. The reality is that somebody can act in a not alignment with their goals. They can not show self-control. They can not follow the plan. They can ignore the AI reminder. They can ignore their coach's check-in. They can do all those things because they're not with them right there. They're not making the decision for them, which means it's somebody's responsibility. And this is where I do think the coach comes into play. And I don't think AI can replace this, to tap into the psychology of that individual. It's to create a connection and to really figure out why they're making these decisions that aren't aligned with their goals and get them to understand that it is not conducive to where they want to be. I don't think AI can do that for us. I think AI can explain what I just explained very easily and very quickly. Maybe the person can read that from AI and be like, oh, shit, they're right. But are they going to do it? And is AI going to remind them in a way that actually gets them to care enough to do it? Because AI is not going to get mad at you and stop holding you accountable if you just hit the snooze button.
Do you think AI and perhaps robotics, and we can talk about the Internet of Things, has potential when it comes to shaping our environment? Because we know that shaping our environment is profoundly powerful for behavior change. So I'm thinking, and I mean, I don't know if anybody's seen the sadly underrated movie I, Robot. Will Smith. It's based off the Asimov book. And well, anyway, if you've seen it, you know. If you haven't seen it, the robots kind of go crazy, right? But everybody has a in-house personal assistant robot, and we're seeing, probably the early stages of the explosion of what will ultimately be robotics. I won't be surprised in our lifetime if we have personal robotic assistants in our homes, or at least, the people who opt for this sort of thing, who may be able to do any number of tasks. So my thoughts are, if you were to engineer, you had all this, and you were to engineer a environment for someone to support them, how would you engineer it? Let's say the AI could do it, robotics could do it.
Yeah, this is actually a really cool conversation. I think this is where it could potentially help a lot. And even, I mean, simple stuff like Alexa. People walk into their house and they're like, Alexa, turn on music, and it starts playing music. There's research to show, for example, with music specifically, that it's going to shape our attitude. It's going to shape our mood. It's going to shape a lot of things, right? And our motivation and all that stuff. But also, there's a lot of research to support that we will subconsciously make our music selection based on what our true mood state is, which means if we're sad or we're somber, we are likely going to choose songs that really reinforce that and exaggerate that emotion, which can actually send us down a further path. So if we are unmotivated and we select unmotivating music, it's going to keep that going. Now, if we could prompt AI to help us with things like our music, like the temperature in our house, the type of TVs, the lighting, all these things, I do believe that we could prompt it in a way that is aligned with our future self that we're after, which means that in the moment when I'm prompting it, I can be motivated, I can be ready to make change, all these things. It's not in that state that it's an issue. It's in the state 3 days from then when I had a stressful day at work and I come home, or I'm in a fight with my spouse and I make bad decisions. So if we can engineer AI and prompt it when we're in a good state, and we can encourage it to help shape our environment, that could even be setting up our schedule in a more advantageous way. I think the fallout always becomes we will make our own decisions. So AI controlling our environment to improve our results is only going to work so long as it is with automated decisions. It's with things like music. And if it allows us to block all other music except this on these days at this time, which also means we have to have enough awareness about when we're in this state, when we lack self-control, when we need to pick me up, when we're lacking motivation, when we need to bring the lights down and go to bed because we know we need a certain amount of sleep. I always end up in a place where I'm like, I don't know if AI can solve that part. Like we need ourselves in order to get AI to be the most help.
You said something, alluded to something. I call it pre-decided. That's effectively what you presented. And to me, it's a powerful tool. It's something I try to get clients to buy into. And it's when you're in the clear state of mind, but planning ahead. And it's part of curating your environment. One of the things, obviously, I have a meal prep sponsor, and I've love these meals. So shout out Just Buy Me Meals, right? And I have to order this a few days in advance to make sure it gets delivered to me, right? As opposed to and I've never used a food delivery app. I've never downloaded one. I've never used it. That is actually kind of a hill I currently die on. I suppose, you could be more disciplined and just only order the more nourishing things. But what do most people do? It becomes an option, a convenient option that they have tired at the end of the day. And the way I look at it is on a certain day, there's a very good chance that I may have that prep meal in the fridge. They're good. I love them. But I'm just like, I could just DoorDash something, right? Or Uber Eats or whatever. So I just eliminate that option altogether. And if I'm going to order stuff, well, I go back to what are the two things that people could get for delivery before food delivery apps? There's two things. It's pretty normal. What are they?
Pizza and
Yeah, and
I mean, I was thinking milkman over here, but I'm what am I missing?
now you're going way back. Chinese
Yeah.
food.
Chinese
right?
food, yes.
So guess what? I'm down with, pizza delivery and Chinese food delivery. All good, right? On occasions, whatever. But for everything else, I'm like, no, it's just that is a pre-planned thing. It's a choice I'm sort of presented with, but I opted out of. Now, again, I think people can make an argument for doing it well. I think on the balance is probably a gross overcharging for, food that we tend to eat, relatively poor quality food, high calorie food on impulse. And when that option is present there a lot. So perhaps this can go in another direction. And I guess we're getting really futuristic here, but at what point do you think we can use AI to set guardrails to prevent us from doing the things? And this sort of gets scary because then again, we get into the iRobot situation where it's like, well, I'm going to leave the house to go pick up something from the grocery store. And the robot's like, you're not leaving the house because you told me 2 days ago not to let you go out and get snacks, right? Are we ever going to get to that level of this dystopia?
Oh, I hope not. I mean, I remember seeing the first clip of Elon Musk's like robots at that show thing it was like something I saw pop up on Instagram and it freaked me out. I was like, I don't know, that whole thing is weird to me. But what you're talking about too, there's some good research on this and they call it's research on self-discipline and they call it if-then statements. And so they had people and it was a way that they say you can automate discipline. And so what it is if blank, then blank. If I'm staying at a hotel, then I will not eat buffet. If I'm staying at a hotel, then I will start my day with a morning walk around the building. Like you can think of anything you want. If I am late on my way home, then I will stop here. And you have this specific thing. You're kind of setting up these guardrails, right? And it's predicated on situations that happen and occur. So instead of reacting in the moment, this situation triggers a decision you've already decided, which usually, in my experience, means that prior to that, you failed to handle that situation the right way or in alignment with your goals. And that's what gave you the awareness around this to make that decision. It's like habit stacking in a way. If I brush my teeth, then I will do this too, right? I will wash my face. And you stack these. And this helps people a lot. And I think that if you understand how to create your own if-then statements, you could plug those into AI in certain ways, depending on what form of AI we're using. I also think that these guardrails typically come from more of an identity shift. This is actually something we used AI to find out with our clients. We scoured Google reviews, Google testimonials and messages from clients, but also our application forms and different updates and wins and referrals. And we just gave all this information. We're like, find the most successful clients and what the common thread was. And time again, AI, we've popped it into Gemini, ChatGPT, all these different things. Core values and identity shift. And it was people noticing what their core values were, attaching fitness and nutrition to their core values, meaning my core values are this, and I am aligned with my values when I am acting in alignment with fitness and nutrition, when I'm being my healthiest self. But also this identity shift. And the identity shift comes when people use I am statements. I am a person who does not do takeout, for example. And if we know that, then we can plug that in. And if AI is providing us menus or meal plans or food habits, and it knows beforehand that one of our identity statements or one of the things that we proclaim as a part of who we are is that we don't do takeout, it's going to take that into consideration when it's creating this plan. And so you could eliminate bad decisions by determining what your identity statement or proclamation is. And it's also a really powerful way for people to manage habits. I've used this example with a lot of clients before with alcohol. And it's like, I personally, I drink, I like whiskey, I like wine, but I only drink on Saturdays. Got some family history that I don't want to get into a bad habit of. I can drink and I can hold my liquor easily. So it's like, you know what? The easiest way to make sure I never fall into that, and this said this years ago, is I am somebody who just drinks on Saturdays. Saturday nights, usually with my wife, especially now that I have kids, usually at my own house. But like, point is that's just how I am. And that allows me to avoid alcohol or situations where I end up drinking throughout the week pretty easily because I identify with a person who only eats or only drinks alcohol on Saturdays. I'm also a person who identifies as being self-disciplined and who stays very active. I am a person who gets enough sleep. I am a person who handles stress well. When we start to create these storylines in our head, instead of the stress is overwhelming me or I can't handle it, we begin to shift our identity. And this is what allows us to be empowered to make better decisions. If we can plug that into AI, maybe AI could help us in the weak moments because we all have them, right? We're all human. Does that make sense?
Totally does. I mean, I like where you go with this. I mean, like we can set AI aside for a second here. And one of the things I was going to ask you, but it's a perfect time to do it is, I mean, in your media, you talk about you grew up overweight. And so I wanted to ask, what were some of the things that allowed you to be successful to keep it off? I mean, you're a ripped dude, right? Like, and you have been for years. I mean, I first met you in 2017. You were not overweight then. You are not overweight now. I am not aware at any point in your media where you relapsed. So already with what you were talking about, what are some of the other ways that you have shaped identity, defined yourself that has helped you maybe in the early stages and now as identity is more fully formed?
Yeah. The first thing, and I remember this, honestly, the funny thing is, I believe it was Tony Robbins who really kind of helped me shift my mindset around this all those years back. Gosh, it would have been like 2010. It was right after I graduated high school. And I remember he was like the first, I remember hearing Rob Dyrdek say something about Tony Robbins, and it gave me like approval to like consider meditation and like this woo-woo stuff, because he was a pro skateboarder and I thought he was cool. But I remember removing the negative identity statements first. And I think that's the most powerful thing. And so at the time for me, it was like, this is just how I am. These are just my genetics, which were complete lies. And now that I know more about the research, epigenetics is going to be way more powerful because most people who have genetic obesity, it's because their environment and their family's environment has always been that of obese lifestyles. And we can have, there's a lot of things that can counteract the obesity gene pretty easily. Not simply, I shouldn't say easily because it takes work, but point is removing those negative identity statements, I believe was the first thing I really had to do. I also found a lot of use in borrowing other people's confidence to rewrite the story in my head. So an example of this is looking at other transformations and seeing other people who did it. And if they could do it, why couldn't I? And actually, and this is the hard part, removing the emotions out of it and really ask yourself and try to figure out, is that true? Like, if they could do it, could I technically do it? And it becomes more of a possibility. This even happened in my career. The first time I really started finding confidence in myself of what I could achieve was when I met Luca. I was 18 years old and he was the first guest speaker at school that came in wearing a Jordan sweatsuit. And he was cursing a bunch. And I was like, this is not like the 5 physical therapy CEOs that we had at school. Who's this guy? And it gave me a little bit of hope of like, well, if he did it, I could do it. He's not even from this country. I could definitely do it, So borrowing that confidence from other people and borrowing that certainty, I think helped me a ton in the early stages. And I had to lean a lot of that on that confidence. And I tried different diets and I gained the weight back. So there was this yo-yo factor, but it never dawned on me that I couldn't do it. It was just more of, am I willing to do it or not? It's not a matter of can or can't. It's just that, am I willing to do what it takes to get there? And once I figured out what it would actually take, I realized, yeah, I am willing to do that. And I think that's how I've been able to keep I've kept the weight off now for a decade plus. So it's been forever. But in most things in life, I think it's that way too. I think with business and I see marriages and I'm like, they have an awesome marriage and he's got a successful business and he's got a really great relationship with his kids. It's possible. Why can't I have that kind of life and balance too? And one thing doesn't have to overpower the other.
Something that underpins this that I feel like we can look at broad statistics. The statistics are usually sort of misquoted, misrepresented. The classic one is that, allegedly 95% of people regain the weight after they've lost it. Now, part of the problem with that statistic is there's a massive cohort of people who go about it through fad yo-yo dieting, mainstream marketing, dieting. They're not resistance training, right? And so I'd skews that statistic wildly. And it's presented almost always by, and I'm kind of nasty about these type of personalities. There's a subsection of influencer types that enter the industry, and I find that they sort of get on with this performative empathy that's very disempowering, and they will like to throw statistics at people. Now, the social determinants of health, it's a very real thing, and understanding it's really important. But I find that they wield it and weaponize it in such a way that the messaging almost is, it's beyond your control. Almost everybody can't do this. Therefore, you should be happy, just being where you are. You shouldn't put this pressure on yourself. And I find it all very disempowering. And that can feel like that's the truth for almost everybody. But what you've been doing is you're gravitating to, in this context, the exceptions, the outliers, the people who have demonstrably and successfully long-term kept the weight off, been successful in business. Every single person can look in their life and find someone they know who used to be really overweight, has lost the weight, has kept it off, has gotten metabolically healthier, right? They're walking around all over the place. We've coached a lot of them, but we know a lot of these people, okay? Yeah. So it's not impossible. And what you've done, and I like this a lot, is just go, okay, if that person can do it, I can do it. What are the lessons from that person? Instead of drowning in the emotionally soothing, comforting lies and statistics that will say to you, hey, it's beyond your control. It's not your fault. And I don't like weaponizing fault, but I like giving people back control.
I think the other thing to add here too is that let's say that 95% of people who gain the weight back after they lose it is real. Let's say it's accurate. Does that also negate the fact that everybody who is successful also failed? I just got done saying I gained the weight back. I yo-yoed because I was trying to figure it out. And then eventually I got it. We've done surveys with hundreds and hundreds of clients. And I can tell you that the vast majority of people who at least hire us, they have had 3 to 4 experiences with a coach or with a diet before hiring us, which means that they've been trying to do it for at least a year, if not 2 or 3, before finding us, which hopefully is the right solution to keep it off. But the point is that, Luca comes and speak and I look at him and I'm like, if he can do it, I can do it. But I didn't say he's never failed once in his pursuit to doing it. That means I won't either. I said that he failed, but he kept going and he eventually succeeded. That means I can do the same. And I think that's really where the power is. And in a lot of these reframes, this is where I think it's the Yoda quote, do not can't, or whatever the quote is.
Do or do not, there is no try.
Yeah, there you go. It's been a while since I've seen it, but it can be kind of, I don't know, people get weird about that kind of stuff. And these quotes like remove these from your vocabulary. But in some sense, it's very true because you are feeding your subconscious, and your subconscious is what fuels your attitude and your actions and your reactions that are subconscious, because you're not really taking the time to think about what your next word is or what you're going to say. It's just pre-programmed in your brain. And so if we can start to shift those things and not say it's too hard, I'll probably fail, but rather say that it's not easy, but I'll get it if I keep trying, that empowers me to know that it's okay to fail, but if I keep pushing, I will succeed. That is a subconscious mindset and attitude and mind frame that we do want to have. And I think that's where, 95% of people probably did gain the weight back, but that doesn't mean they didn't eventually lose it and stay lean afterwards.
There's something else that you described that I'll conceptualize for people. It's the alter ego effect. There's a great book on it, and I've used it in pockets. And there are a lot of famous examples, Kobe Bryant, and I think I actually have his book up here. Yeah, the Mamba mentality, right? So his alter ego is the Black Mamba when he would get on the court. And he'd take himself, and I think channel this alter ego persona. Eminem is obviously a alter ego persona of Marshall Mathers. Beyonce has Sasha Fierce. There are a handful of them. And in a way, it allowed these people to separate themselves from their insecurities and anxieties project themselves into a persona, a different persona that was more confident, more successful, whatever. But it drowned out, I think, the noise. And you can do this. I remember a good example. It's more of a career-based thing, but for the coaches listening, uh, I remember when I first started as a trainer at this gym over 15 years ago, and I was handed a list of clients of the gym that still had some sessions left or, had previously trained with trainers. And it's like, hey, call these people. And I'm just like, cold calling? Oh my God. Like, no. But the manager who hired me was a cheerful, positive, smiling, confident person. Didn't seem like anything fazed him, at least outwardly. And I remember distinctly just smiling, picturing that I was him and dialing the phone. And I just channeled him. And I find that if you picture someone who has the skills, the abilities that you need in that moment, we're not talking about faking being a doctor or a lawyer or anything highly technical, but just personality and confidence, charisma, whatever. And you just channel and imagine you are that person. You can actually manifest it. It sounds a little woo-woo, but this alter ego effect is very potent. It's a dressed up way of faking it till you make it. Sure, which people have various different thoughts on that whole thing. But, in my personal experience, it can be really potent. And to me, that's what you're describing.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think that at the end of the day, you are a trainer who does have the right and the capability of training that person. It is purely just a confidence and probably an experience being in front of people and cold calling and sales and stuff at that point that is stopping you. It's not the ability to do it. It's just the mind frame. So channeling that is a perfect way to bypass that and be able to display what that person is actually there for, which is your expertise. I think there's a lot of ways that people can do this. And I think too, it's partially just understanding that most of the time it's a projected judgment. It's your own perceived judgment. And if you can remove the thought of people judging you or saying, because at the end of the day, people who really care, and this is what I always try to remember too, is especially in those kind of situations, this maybe not pertain to food necessarily or training, but anybody who truly cares about you, anybody who's in your circle, they don't want to see you screw up. They want to empower you to grow. They want you to do better. They're not going to be making fun of you or embarrassed for you or anything like that. They just want you to go get it. In fact, they respect somebody who is not worried about getting embarrassed. So if we think about it, like the people we respect are the people who just don't care. It's like, well, that's how most people are. So just being able to go take action and do it and knowing that the worst case scenario is actually really rarely ever that bad at all is a really easy way to remember that you can dive in.
Do you think part of the reason why people don't consistently do the things that change is there's a narrative about increased expectations that other people have of them and the fear of at some point failing and publicly failing? Like you've lost the weight and then regained it, and then the fear of the shame that will come with it. Therefore, it's just easier not to lose it in the first place because then no one is going to judge or ridicule you for having failed at it.
I do. I think there's a few things here. I think that there is the potential fear of failure in front of people. I think there's the potential fear of failure to yourself because the inability to follow through on what you promised yourself is the fastest way to increase self-doubt, and it is going to crush your self-belief, which is your confidence. So there's a internal layer of us that doesn't want to fail ourselves. We also don't want to fail in front of other people. There's also a subconscious fear of success because success comes with a responsibility. If you get in shape, now you have the responsibility of staying in shape, which I would argue is typically easier than people realize, mostly because as you actually sustain weight loss, you begin to enjoy what you've achieved. You begin to enjoy the habits. The habits are easier. They're second nature. They're habits now. They're not like tasks and homework. But nonetheless, in the beginning, there's that fear of even success. So I think that there's a lot of things attached to it. I also think that people fail to prioritize the small things in day-to-day life that actually contribute to your ability to sustain that. And what I mean by that is the more often you say you're going to do something and you don't do it, the less self-belief you have, the less certainty in yourself you have, and the more doubt you have. Not only that, the more doubt others have in what you are willing to do. Because if I consistently, even something as small as, hey babe, I'll take out the trash, and I just never do it, if I'm constantly forgetting, why would my wife have confidence in my ability to act on things? Now, she doesn't think I'm a liar, but she has no proof or evidence that my follow through is great. And if I don't take those little things seriously, I'm not depositing in that skill set for myself. If we strip away, we talk a lot with our clients about self-control, discipline, self-belief. And when we accomplish all these things, you get a result. You end up with self-respect, which is I treat myself in a different way than I used to because I respect who I am, what I've achieved at this point. But self-control is a skill. Self-discipline is a skill. And if you are a parent, if you're a mom of 3 and you are in public and your kids throw a fit, and this has happened numerous times because you have kids and this happens. It's part of having kids. Every once in a while they throw a fit and whatever. And you keep your cool, you calmly take control, you do what you got to do, which so many mothers do. You do have self-control. You actually have a lot of self-control. And you have displayed self-control with your children so many times, and you can translate that skill over to weight loss. Is it a direct transfer? No. If somebody's great at throwing a baseball and then you put a football in their hand, they're not going to be a great quarterback right away, but they have the mechanics of throwing and they'll get it eventually. And so you do have a head start, and most people have more control and discipline than they realize. Belief is usually what people lack, and it's because their follow through sucks. They say they're going to do something and they don't. They commit to something themselves. They set goals. They don't follow through with it. And then that stops them from initiating the actions of self-control and discipline to create change.
I want to hit on a point there because I want to make sure that people listening understood what you said. In the example with a mother, 3 kids, and the kids throwing tantrums, you're talking about the mom retaining composure in the face of it, not the act of being able to prevent the kids from acting out. And I think that's a really important distinction because without clarifying that, it could imply shaming a mother who isn't able to control her kids. Because I actually think that I'm not a parent, but I think one of the biggest shame triggers for parents is children in public crying on airplanes. And I remember, I'm sure a younger version of me, I'm on a plane or a public place and like some kid is crying and I'm thinking like, please control the kid, right? But now, no. I think to myself, the parents are probably doing the best they can. They're probably really stressed out. They're probably feeling a lot of shame in that moment because the kid is crying. They can't bring them under control and they're in a public setting. So I actually try now to have a tremendous amount of empathy for that person. And if there is the case where like there's any eye contact, it's like more like a knowing smile of kindness as opposed to a harsh look of judgment. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say this as a father of a child. My wife stays at home. She's the primary caretaker. I'm home a lot. I play my role, but there's times where I look at my wife and I'm like, I need your help because she has that down way better than me. So this is not me standing on holy ground saying like, I never lose my composure with my child. Like, in fact, my wife's way better at it, but it's something that is a skill. She's with her every day, right? Right now she's with her. I'm not. It's a skill. So I'll never forget. There was one night we were having some drinks and we had some friends over and stuff, and they left. They brought us like cookie crumble or something. I can't remember what it was. And they like left at the house and they left. And my wife wanted to have some. And then I took a bite. It was a small bite, and I was like, it's good. And I was pretty drunk. And she literally looked at me and she was like, how do you have that much control when you're drunk? And I was like, it's food. It's a skill. I've done it so much. If I was drunk and somebody were to do something that made me mad, would I be able to keep my cool and not raise my voice or yell or freak? I don't know, because that doesn't happen very often to me. It's not a skill. Am I able to keep my composure with my daughter every single time she throws a fit in public? Probably not, because I don't experience it enough. I'm not with her as often as my wife. So I say that to say skills are developed. They're not born with these traits. Even David Goggins, who his birth and his childhood created the type of discipline and control and everything he has. His mindset was shaped from his environment without a doubt, but he wasn't born with a strain of DNA that we weren't. He was raised in experiences that helped him develop and callous into what he is today. And when we look at self-control, self-discipline, self-belief, it's the repetition of actions. It's getting, and even going back to what you asked earlier with what have I done for these identity shifts over time? One of the things that has been a staple since day one of me getting into all of this years and years and years ago is journaling and affirmations. I am blank. I will blank. And writing over and over again and declaring these I am statements. I'm proclaiming who I am as a person. And half the time I'm writing what I need more confidence in. I'm talking myself into it. I'm reminding myself who I am and what I'm capable of. And as, again, woo-woo as that can be, there's plenty of research on meditation and on journaling that shows the more you focus and center your brain on what you're capable of, the more confident you feel in that skill, in that trait, in that characteristic, and you can bring it out of yourself far more over time.
A quick sponsor break for my current aspiring coach listeners. This episode is brought to you by Train Heroic. If you know me, you know I only work with sponsors I use personally and where I know the people behind the product. Train Heroic is the best online coaching software in the industry. Not only is it a great platform for one-on-one coaching, it's fantastic for group coaching and selling standalone programs. Train Heroic is used by some of my trusted friends, so I switched my online group program here, and my members love it, raving about its ease of use. Having a dedicated app means far greater reliability for my clients and has been by far my best experience with any online coaching software. Train Heroic is a proven and stable industry leader, meaning it isn't going to suddenly disappear. One of the biggest risks in choosing an online coaching software. When you start a free trial today, you'll get 90 days free to experience why I love and trust this platform. You'll get full support from their team, who've been a joy for me to work with. And I trust Train Heroic and the people behind it. Here's how to activate your free 90-day trial. It's 2 important steps. Number 1, go to www.trainheroic.com/liftfree. Step 2, reply to the email you get. It should be trials@trainheroic.com, and let them know I sent you, or go to the links in the show notes.
Something you said in there, I love to pull out. So I'm big on narratives, digging into and asking people what their narratives are, what their stories are. And we mentioned Goggins. That made me think of the parable of the brothers who grew up with an alcoholic father, and one's an alcoholic and one doesn't drink. And when asked, each of them, or it could be 2 different people, right? And so you ask the guy who's an alcoholic, well, why do you drink? Because my father was an alcoholic. And then you turn to the guy who never drinks and going, well, why don't you ever drink? Because my father was an alcoholic. And what's embedded in that? There's that person's, at some level, chosen story and narrative about their experience and how it defined them. And one person, and I'll be very careful because it's nowhere near this simple, but in this context, that person has adopted a victim mindset about the circumstance. It's way more complex than that, but they ultimately have outsourced their agency over this particular situation. Okay? Whereas the other person has adopted a mindset of agency. And there's, again, we know that there are going to be people in the industry who kind of push back at this stuff, or different situations are more complex. But I think at its heart, a component of success is examining your narratives and your stories about why we do what we do, both small choices in the moment and bigger picture stuff. And I think on the balance, it's not about being 100% perfect. I think it's on the balance, having more narratives and stories that support a successful identity and behavior versus ones that enable the unhealthy behaviors.
I would say that, we're 8.5 years into online coaching. I was an in-person trainer for that. We've worked with a lot of people, and I've had a full team. At one point we had 9 coaches, and we've made some shifts over the years, and we're a smaller team now. But for the majority, we were a big team working with a lot of people. And I would say that this is the most important aspect of coaching to get people to lose weight amongst anything else, specifically with, I want to say online coaching, but really anything. And I think it's specifically the most difficult thing for online coaches to learn and develop, because this is our coaching. There's a screen here and you're across the country or the world. How do I get them to create change? Well, you get them to create change by diving into those values and diving into their narrative, the narrative that they don't love, but they will admit and talk to you about, the narrative that they wish they had, and you can help them develop. This creates the identity shift. And again, we've pulled this from our data to see, and it was just like glaring at us. And we started shifting a lot of what we do to really, really hone in on this, because people who need to create serious change in order to lose weight are not going to just lose weight because you set their macros for them. It's, if the only types of clients you can create transformations with are self-motivated individuals who love tracking macros and lifting weight, online coaching is definitely going to be difficult for you. In-person training is going to be difficult for you too. I think there's a lot of aspects to that. And this is not me saying that I don't have those clients. I do have clients that are highly motivated, who love tracking, who are meatheads like me, and I love working with them. They're a blast. But we recognize that most Gen Pop is not that way. And it's okay. It's okay for me to say, hey, I don't expect you to love lifting weights like I do. I'm obsessed with it. It's kind of weird, if anything. You're normal. Don't worry about it. It's totally fine. What do you need to do to become who you want to become? I want to help you bridge that gap. I want to help you do just that much so that you can create the change. Because in the beginning, the outcome is what we're after, but the outcome's not creating the changes in our behavior, right? We go to the gym, we meal prep first week, not much happens. Are we still motivated by that outcome? It's going to take a while to get to the outcome. Eventually, they start seeing serious results. And you know this. You've seen so many clients do this. They look in the mirror. They see the weight loss. Now their own results are fueling their motivation to keep going and take action. And that's a beautiful thing. But there is this period of time before they start seeing results where they're not highly motivated all the time. In fact, if anything, they're doubting themselves, and it's tedious and it's homework. The only way to get through that period of time with clients and to do it well and to get them fired up is to really start leaning into what you're talking about here.
Let's get a little tactical with the last few minutes on some tracking stuff. So what are some of the biggest mistakes that you see people who are trying to track, but they're struggling with getting the results they want?
Most of the time, there is just all these little things that fall through the cracks. Food labels are inaccurate. They're measuring in cups instead of grams. They are selecting the wrong option in MyFitnessPal, which is a very common thing. It's like Wikipedia for food logs. There's a million different things.
I'm going to shout my Macros First sponsor because it's one of the features. If you've used MyFitnessPal for a long time, there are dozens, if not hundreds, of entries for the same thing. Macros First, verified food database. They have limited things, so it's way less confusing to figure out the right option. It's one of the reasons why I love them. But I mean, again, for my sponsors, I'm very picky. I use them, and I'm not just going to let anybody throw money at me to say, hey, can you hawk this for me? No, Macros First all the way.
Yeah, and that's how it should be. And that's you hit the nail on the head. There is so many options in there. I mean, at one point, this is quite a while ago, we created our own entries. I paid somebody on my staff to create a ton of entries in MyFitnessPal with our brand name on it so that we can just say, clients, just use these options, because there wasn't an option like what you just talked about. So those little things are a big issue. A lot of times too, it's overeating and not adding. So people are hitting their macros, and the reality is that the coach has to take control of actually stepping in and educating them, going a little bit above and beyond, and really going through their diet and showing them how to track better, getting on FaceTime if you need to, having them take pictures and track it in the app, showing them examples of you doing it, giving them an exact meal plan to follow, even just for a few days, because when they do that, they'll point out their own mistakes in their meal planning and their tracking by following what you listed for them. There's a lot of little strategic things that we implement to make sure that people are doing it correctly. But there's still always there's a lot of times where people just don't enter in what they actually ate because they got to the end of the night and they're snacking on things with their kids. They don't put that in. It's tedious to try to track it. So that's where the mindset shift comes. And if you can create an environment where they trust you, we can be going through a diet on a call and we can say, hey, so where are you adding more food in here and not tracking it? It's okay. We all do it. Like, where is it? And then they'll open up and they'll tell you. And it's like, how do we get it to where you feel empowered enough to not do that at night anymore? What is triggering that from happening every time?
You know where I start with that? I tell them, eat it, just track it. Like, you can eat anything you want and just track it. And it becomes more about getting the behavior locked in than actually like being perfect with the macros at that time. 100%. What almost always happens is it just creates this realization for people like, holy shit, this amount of food that I'm eating is going way over on what I need. And then they get confronted with, well, which matters more? Do I want to actually like achieve my goals and be healthy, or do I want to just eat whatever I want all of the time? Because those things for almost everybody cannot coexist. But I find what it tends to do is it tends to get people to pause on it and go, well, hey, I have to track this, so do I want to eat it? And that pause, that interruption, it's a pattern interrupt that's really critical to break up mindless and bored eating. So I always go at this from a point of there's no judgment here, log it. If people are sending me their food, it's probably the most important coaching skill that you can get when you're actually working with nutrition clients who are tracking is to not judge, to not criticize, to not even in the slightest hint of making someone feel better for having made this choice, and proactively let them know this. Put it all in. There's no judgment. We are just over time going to work on this, and it's your decision about what you want to eat and if you want to make it fit in the numbers and the goals.
Yeah. And the other thing that happens when they have to actually track it like that is instead of reaching in the bag and just grabbing some pretzels, they have to weigh it out. They have to measure it. They have to take it out. What they usually do is take out less than they normally would eat. They eat it and they go over and they're still not satisfied. And then it realizes that, wow, I was probably eating even more than I actually tracked because I'm just eating out of the bag normally, which again, no judgment. We're all guilty of this. I've done this plenty of time, and I'm a coach. You know, this is where there is a time where you have to really, really dive into your goals and have accountability, because you have to put the two things up, like you said, and look at like, is my goal worth me sacrificing this thing, which is late night snacking or whatever it is? 9 times out of 10, the answer is always yes. We just have to get that buy-in so that we can help them change that behavior.
What you just described, I had a recent episode with Josh Hillis, and he's one of my favorite people when it comes to emotional eating, eating habits, etc. If you're not familiar with him, I'm going to have to introduce you guys. He's magical. And this is exactly what part of the conversation was about, is taking out, the bag of chips. We talked about this a lot in this episode, putting some of it in a bowl versus just eating straight from the bag, because it creates a sort of a firm amount that you have to then pause and make the decision, all right, am I going to go back and get more? And like you said, it tends to have us consuming less. Any other big mistakes you find trip people up with tracking?
Honestly, I think it's way less than most people would think. There's not, 80% of people or more they are overestimating how active they are and underestimating how many calories they consume. It's really just getting them to see that. It's really getting them to see the data, the numbers in front of them, because when you see the numbers of what they're actually consuming, they're not going to lie to themselves, obviously. And so we have to be able to point that out to them. And I think a lot of coaches don't spend enough time showing them, because it does require you to go through their app and food logs to show them. And there's certain red flags you see. If I see somebody's just eating a bunch of snacks and packaged foods, I'm like, hey, even if you're measuring these perfectly, the whole thing's 20% off, because we know food labels are 20% off. Like, let's focus on some whole foods to get things more accurate, right? And then it's looking at like, okay, how is your food volume? Because if they're not eating a food volume and they're hungry and they have cravings later, that's one thing. If the cravings are more behavior-based, emotion-based, we have to address that. A lot of coaches don't feel confident or comfortable doing so, which I understand, but I don't have to be a therapist to ask them, hey, what's going on? Because they just need an ear. They need somebody to talk to and open up about that's not going to judge them. So I think most of the time people are just uneducated on how to track properly, or they are consuming more than what you're seeing in their food logs. And you just have to respectfully call them out and remember that as a coach, they hired you to call them out and hold them accountable, not to baby them and tell them that it's okay. It's to tell them like, hey, it's not okay because you deserve more than this based on what you told me you wanted to achieve. And I'm here to hold you accountable of that. Even if that makes you feel uncomfortable, you can say that. I hate having this conversation because I feel bad. I want to just tell you everything's okay, but hey, I'm here to hold you accountable to the higher standard of yourself that you signed up to create with me. And that takes a strong coach in order to be able to do that. I don't think AI is going to do that for anybody.
I think one of the benefits of getting people to track is it tends to, I don't want to use the word restrict, but it tends to get people to work within a slightly more limited array of options for meals. Most people tend to have routine things that they cook. And if you measure out everything, you're pretty good about it. You can actually measure everything, weigh it, do the calculation once, and then save this meal and repopulate. As long as you standardized the portions and the size of the overall meal, then it's just very easy to track. So that actually makes it easier. But if you're someone who's trying to lose weight, whatever your goals are, and you want to incorporate tracking, in order to make tracking work better, you tend to bias towards the things that are easier to track. So I think it can change behavior that way too, in addition to getting people to pause on certain things going, do I really want this? I have to log it.
Yeah.
Everybody can follow you at Cody McBroom on Instagram. They can listen to the Choose Hard podcast. I was a guest not too long ago. Anything else you want to share with people?
No, that's about it. My name or Tailored Coaching Method is the company. The website has a lot of free I'm one of the people that still puts out blogs, and we have a lot of free content on there. And the podcast Andrew's been on, and a lot of great guests. So just anything we got online, it's free. Just go get more knowledge from that, and just get better. That's it.
Beautiful. Thanks for coming on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, brother. Thank you.